Good afternoon and welcome to the show. It is my honor to present these ideas with you that you won't hear from the mainstream media, that you won't hear from anyone on earth in conspiracy theory media. What I am and what I represent is light years beyond where other people are at. And the truth is, whether you agree or disagree, you have a right to do either. People are intimidated by my energy, and in some cases, my voice. The point where local law enforcement will scream, "Stop talking! Stop talking!" Like, there's healing in my voice, and there's truth in my voice. Okay? And the fact of the matter is, if I share posts on a regular basis, mainstream journalists, accredited journalists that should have the maturity to understand what I'm saying, they're going to judge me, especially if I'm showing emotion and if I'm sounding loud and if I look unstable and I talk about calling 988 because they as white people, because they in some cases as black people have never been put into a situation where their information and ethnicity has resulted in nobody wanting to talk to me. Okay, now I understand many of you are very secular and you don't understand the subject of solar flares. Give me a second. Okay. This is my book. Okay. And I say this with love. Do you have a book about the science of the solar effects over humanity, which a Russian scientist discovered 100 years ago? And because that information was so potent, so valuable, so revealing, they locked his ass away. And I've been shadow banned. And there are other people throughout history, seers, psychics, mystics, trailblazers, and we're not talking about the Portland trailblazers, but real men in this world. I don't know if you knew this or not, they face hardship, okay? So I'm definitely doing some wishful thinking if I can contact, the idea of contacting the mainstream media that ignored me all these years, thinking that they have compassion for me. They don't. So that's where we're starting, because this is what you need to know about me. I'm a real man. I'm the most real man you've ever met in your life. What does that mean? It means despite the fact that I'm facing dark isolation, just like others that are being labeled terrorists, I'm being a spiritual person, allowing you to drop the email, allowing you to unsubscribe, not coming back to you and bothering you after you do that, but telling the truth about these things, regardless of how you're going to treat me. Why? Because you need to hear these things. Even if you choose to unsubscribe, you need to be exposed to the truth because I am on a mission from God. There goes one person unsubscribing again. There goes another. What are you running from? What are you hiding from? What are you afraid of, Jeff? What are you afraid of, Alyssa? And they are afraid of me mentioning their names. Oh my God, he mentioned my name. I better drop the email. What a kook. And they don't ever acknowledge their privilege of having family and community to talk to. And what happened last night was very revealing to me. By me getting emotional and being in pain, unfortunately, things were said and done that made it far worse. And then I began to call these various numbers and nobody would even return the phone call and say, I'm just trying to talk to you instead of the internet to talk about these issues so I could sound calmer and all that. But the truth of the matter is, there's nothing wrong with me. The truth of the matter is, I am right about the oppression taking place to these people. And even if you have people on the left that want to act like they're the white friends, the white saviors, the white allies, they don't want to have anything to do with what I'm cooking up. The fears that they have are real. The prejudices that they're holding on to, that they're not admitting, are also real. So you need to study what Naomi, whatever the hell her name is, with Homeland Security, what she's doing. Okay, and I'm going to talk to you today about 3 stories. This report will be under 15 minutes for your convenience, right? And then it's going to go to YouTube or it's going to be ignored. Okay, so you journalists need to be thinking about, as you criticize conspiracy theory, how people that are contrarian philosophers, mixed race, cannot exist in conspiracy theory or your world when they're telling the truth. What are you afraid of? Okay? So I'm going to tell you about 3 stories. Number 1, okay? There was a story a couple days ago about a couple National Guardsmen that were shot in D.C. They're calling it a terror attack, blamed on an Afghan translator who, if the story is real, and we'll look at it from that perspective, okay, was not given the help that he needed, that was trained, likely, possibly, in acts of violence, or he witnessed it, whereas I have not. I've never seen anybody killed. I've never seen anybody killed in front of me. I've never seen anybody raped. But these people that are veterans, that are Afghanis, they have been through the worst, and they were forced to survive, to sell out their own people. That includes participating in situations where people were murdered, raped, and beaten in front of them in order to obtain false confessions. Amy Goodman Show has interviewed some men that have been sexually assaulted and or hurt or detained. My criticism that I hope the producer hears out is that you, for the first time in your life, need to show the world a masculine Arabic guy who's Christian. What are you afraid of? Because I know it is inevitable that everyone will drop me and this email because they find this voice and this information and these eyes toxic. You think it's an accident that I'm covering the eyes? What do you think that is? You think that's a Muslim book? What is this that my best friend brought home the other day? Because we had a wonderful talk this morning. You think she's a Muslim? These are Europeans, man. Do you know about European women throughout history covering their hair and why? You might want to consult AI on the spiritual views of covering thy ass throughout history to keep thyself safe. You need to start questioning this world of watch whatever you want. Hey, little kiddies, here 4-year-olds, here's a cell phone. Watch Pornhub. You need to question how loving your government really is. That's not sexual freedom. And then when I tell people in the society that they promote homicide on those websites, instead of them going, oh my God, that's serious. Drops email, I don't want to hear that. See, you need to understand why your world is the way that it is. So let's go back to Miss Homeland Security. She's saying, and they're saying this guy had dark isolation, okay? And what they're doing is they're creating a dark situation where people are going to judge people with PTSD that are ethnic. You need to put on the big girl pants and have some empathy for me being a non-gun owner, being a peaceful man who believes in peaceful resistance with PTSD, and understand that stigmatizing somebody in a certain way because they sound a certain way is racism, is oppression. It's everything that we need to be evolving beyond, okay? And then, you know, the friend that's in my life who's been the only real human to be, as opposed to the rest of the world, has to remind me on a regular basis, I'm barking up the wrong tree even talking to you. Okay? Because there's no history of you people caring about what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is that needs to change for me to rise above. You think I don't know the truth? You think that I wouldn't be bullied if I was to go on Democracy Now? You think I don't know that certain audience members have been targeted? Do you think that I'm trying to run in to a gunfight with pepper spray? Said with love, think McFly. No, I am not. I'm a visionary. I'm a futurist. And there's a lot of persecution coming in the future of people that are different. And so if you look at my old videos, if you look at my old warnings, if you hear out what I'm saying, there's a lot of information there. What hurts is when I put out the live story about my time in Portland, Oregon, and I talk about sin, or I talk about strip clubs, or I talk about controversial things, or I talk about Clyde Lewis, or I talk about interviewing Alex Jones when I thought he was a good little boy because he was willing to stand against torture and rape and things like that where other people were not. You know what I mean? It sure seems like people are judging me and maybe misunderstanding the video montages. I could be exposing true lies, promoting the idea of, you know, ISIS coming to get you. They put it in the movies before they created that group. And I'm showing you how they use the angry Arab on pro wrestling all throughout the 1980s, including Chuck Norris movies, to implant before 9/11 the fear of the boogeyman. That's not a conspiracy theory to identify propaganda and white supremacy at a systematic level, okay? There is no excuse for me and the so-called anti-racist left coming together on a middle ground. If you do not naturally, via hereditary, hate me and my dad's people, because that's what this comes down to. Can one of you prove to me that you're not a hateful son of a bitch? Because I'm not convinced. Furthermore, you Americans need to listen to me, my fellow Americans, my fellow white Americans. I cannot trust the Afghan refugee groups to not be government agents. A lot of them are. Okay? So we talked about the National Guard shooting. We talked about the fact that he had PTSD. But it's not just that story. Okay? There was a shooting that occurred involving an Afghan translator back in the July-August period. Do you know what was announced during that time period? And the reason is, why aren't you reporting on that? And that's where the left media is behind. They're cutting their resources. They're cutting their balls off. They're cutting off their SNAP. They're cutting off these benefits while white America, conspiracy media, is just saying that they're being rolled out or red carpet while white men are being oppressed by the algorithm, but it's actually backwards. That's not true. Okay? And so you have people that have been cut off from their resources, and they're now being deemed a threat. Piranhas is the word, animals, mutants, threats, a virus. Okay, that's what's going on here. And that's sick. You see how they provoke those people down in Los Angeles to riot? So this is what you need to understand about solar flares. This is what you need to understand about solar flares and the rise and fall of civilization. You need to ask yourself why the schools in Portland don't teach this, because it's science, guys. National Health Mental Institute, suicide, solar flares. We'll do a solar flare video later. But last night, when I was getting upset and we were arguing, on the planetary K index, it was 5. Nobody that talks about solar flares talks about the crime links. They're woo-woo. And nobody that talks about crime and crime prevention and women's safety talk about solar flares. Okay? You're not the most intelligent in the room. A lot of you are offended by new ideas, like you're being attacked or something. And it's psychopathic. It is on par with white supremacy to hear out my spirituality and go, that's poo-poo, while just culturally appropriating the yoga techniques that you want to relax while burning in hell the actual yogis and gurus. Okay? No bueno. Okay? So what we have here is a failure to communicate the obvious truth. When we were dealing with the situation with what happened back in August, he opened fire on purpose. He ambushed them. He shouldn't have done it. I'm against it. But as a psychologist, I know what really happened. He was responding to the solar flares, but he never heard of it. Okay, he had his resources cut off, and he knew that the government was planning his assassination or death via the Taliban. Send them back to the Taliban, which Biden made sure would be in control. Translators who gave their life for the United States are now going to be deported to be executed via the Taliban. Okay? And every single one of you that's going to unsubscribe because you're hearing this message, you're a part of the white supremacy system. Okay? Now, number 3. There was a story yesterday out of Fort Worth. Again, when the planetary index 5 was like this. And they're saying that this guy, this Afghani, in the Texas area was planning terror attacks, was planning bombings in Fort Worth. And I told you that I think, as an intuitive, they're going to fake bombings in order to encourage mass deportation of anybody that ends up targeted by the United States government. So in conclusion, this is what it comes down to. God is testing you. Oh, there goes another unsubscriber. God is testing you and looking inside your consciousness and how you are relating to my message. We'll see you in the next video.